Jared, we should have worn camo today since we are talking about generation wars. We talked about the war on Christmas. Let's see, have we talked about any other types of quote unquote wars on the pod? I think we probably have one way or another.
I love calling us like war reporters.
Mm-hmm. Hello and welcome to the Untranslatable podcast. We are here today to talk about differences in generations and the generation wars. If you tune into today's episode, you'll probably hear the phrase, "We didn't do that in my generation," or something along those lines. We're going to talk about some differences in beliefs in generations, lifestyles, in the workforce. We're going to talk about some stereotypes probably as well. And it's going to be a fun episode today, so we're excited to bring it your way. And without further ado, I am joined by my amazing co-host, my partner in crime. What's going on, Jared?
What's up, dude? Yeah, these Gen Zs don't know what it was like not to have internet, you know?
That's right.
They don't even understand what it was like to have to not use your phone not use your house phone in order to use your internet.
Exactly.
They have it good, you know? I'm just going to say it. A
selfie wasn't even really a word in our vernacular when we were kids.
Come on. No. Selfie, that was looking in a mirror when we were kids.
Right. Back in my day, a selfie was when we used to look in the mirror.
Exactly.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You can look in our social mirror, Instagram. Spread a little love. The social mirror, that's what I call it. Although we don't post, Chad posts nothing, but we don't post, I don't post selfies. Nobody wants to see that. It's Untranslatable Podcast. You can follow us on Twitter, Untranslatable1, the number 1. You can also give us 5-star reviews on iTunes and Stitcher. We would love that.
Пожалуйста.
That's Russian for please. So I've been looking at the weather recently, and not even here in Michigan, just in general, and thinking about when you told me how we're all doomed.
Mm-hmm.
And
do you believe me now?
I'm looking in Texas, and I'm like, oh, maybe you have a point. I have an uncle in Dallas, and they experienced some serious snow, and have had rolling blackouts or
Are they doing okay?
Yeah, they're fine. Yeah, they're okay.
Okay.
But yeah, it was a little dicey.
Sure.
And I'm just keep thinking like, oh, maybe Chad has a point. Do you look at the news and you're just like, yeah, it's time.
Kind of. Sometimes
everything's falling in line.
Sometimes.
You know what you can't? Oh, go ahead.
I will say this though: the interesting thing about the entire winter ordeal in Texas is a lot of the people from the northern states of the U.S. are just kind of watching. And part of us, I mean, I feel terrible for all these people. Mm. At the same time, it's like, I don't think it's that difficult to at least be somewhat prepared. I'm not saying it's the people's fault.
It's not difficult to be prepared. Oh, yeah, but I mean, it's the infrastructure that's not prepared. Yeah.
Well, that's what
really
I mean.
Just like, yeah, and apparently what I learned is that as far as like the power grid goes in the United States, there's essentially like the Western power grid, the Eastern power grid, and then Texas.
It splits right where Texas is,
and then it's just the Texas power grid. Like Texas is, and it's apparently it's just infrastructure not prepared for this type of weather. Did you see the
picture of I think it was Texarkana where the one side was Arkansas, the other side was Texas.
I didn't even know a street like that existed.
But the crazy thing is the Arkansas side, the street was plowed.
Yeah, and
the
clear.
Businesses were going, people were driving. The Texas side, there was still snow on the road. Mm-hmm. The cars were obviously driving way further behind one another as they should because the roads are probably really slick. And I was reading, Jared, and I found this fascinating. I was reading that the reason why the roads hadn't been plowed yet is I guess if they commission plows coming in from Arkansas or Arkansas. I think it's illegal to say that. I've just banned myself from ever going to Arkansas now, Jared. But anyways, if you do that, apparently there's lots of steps and red tape and all sorts of stuff, right? Which is kind of funny. You would think, especially some of these Texans, they just drive over to Arkansas with my big truck, put that plow on my truck, and I'm going to go help my community. I don't know, but it's a shame. But you know what, Jared? if you're a wealthy congressman, you know what you can do in these trying times? Just schedule a trip to Cancun and blame it on your daughter.
Listen,
you know.
Chad, he was just dropping them off. And with his full-size suitcase extended, he was just dropping
and his
them
extra
off
bag on top
and flying right back. Who doesn't just fly out real quick to drop off there? And then he had to do the best part. We're talking about Ted Cruz, by the way. The best part is he had to do the walk of shame back because people shamed him so much that he had to then fly back, and they had the pictures of him coming back. Literally only because, and then apparently his wife's friends, posted text messages of them being like, hey, of her like inviting him to Cancun. And it's like, this guy, honestly, he needs to, like, the lack of shame that he holds is really shocking. I mean,
is it though? Are you surprised? I wasn't surprised at all.
I'm not surprised. I'm jealous of how little shame he possesses.
Right.
I mean, first, like the president or the ex-president, Trump,
former president,
insulted his wife. And then
numerous times too. Wasn't just once.
Also called his dad a serial killer.
Like he killed Kennedy.
Yeah, he said
what Trump said about
one of those serial killers. I don't remember, but he's like
the Zodiac.
He said his dad was the Zodiac killer.
No, that was a social media trend that people thought Ted Cruz was the Zodiac killer.
Yeah, but I thought Trump said that.
It kind of looks like it. I mean, I wouldn't put it past him. I wouldn't.
I could have
sworn put it
anyway.
Past him.
But he just endures so much shame and just takes it, and just like you don't have to. And then he's just always self-owning himself on Twitter. Like, you're not on Twitter, but it's a constant self-own.
Well, I've seen the memes and I've seen the stuff about it. I mean, their tweets never age well. Never.
No.
He was making fun of California in like 2015.
Oh, yeah.
When they had a power outage and were having all sorts of issues. But yeah, one of the main issues why Texas is having so many problems right now because they've been hit by this winter storm is their grid isn't really winterized, I guess.
And they're
it's deregulated.
Yeah, it's high. Like their utilities are highly privatized.
Right.
So it's rates
people's
are
prices have gone up. Yeah,
prices go all over the place, and it's the it's not a great system to have competition for just basic
necessities. Your electricity and your water and everything else. Yeah, it's crazy, and heat.
And gas as well. Yeah,
right,
so it's been a mess. It's been crazy to watch. Right. And usually us Northerners, we do like to. I don't really go in much
Yankees,
for this because a lot of my family's from the. I don't really go in a lot for this because a lot of my family's from the South. But like they'll make fun of. The Southerners being like, oh, you get a couple inches of snow and you freak out. It's like
right.
we never, like, if we stop for this, we'd never go to work all winter. But this is and that's all fun, I guess.
I mean, I remember we used to go to school when there were quite a few inches. You just had to make sure all the roads were plowed beforehand.
Yeah, I mean, 16-year-olds would drive to school in that.
Right.
Like I drove to school at 16 in that. But this is completely different. And the thing is, like, people aren't prepared for this just in like basic like things like their tires on their cars and stuff.
Exactly.
Like that. It's like it's it's like, yeah, we don't, our roads are, or I don't know, it's like, yeah, we don't have plows just ready to go like you guys do, and all this stuff, all this salt and stuff ready
and everything
to go.
Else you need. Yeah. It's
And when it turns into a crisis, it's not really funny anymore.
Right. No, we're making fun of Ted Cruz, not the situation.
Oh,
that's
yeah,
for sure.
No. Yeah, his him going to Cancun, being like, well, you guys, I'm just taking up utility, so let me just go and.
That was one of the conservative talking heads was trying to use that argument by saying, oh, he was doing his fellow Texans a service by
like
not
one
using
person,
up the precious resources.
One person not trying to turn on their lights is really what's making the big difference here.
Right. Well, he can work more efficiently remotely, so he can really help his people.
Yeah, right, with the Mai Tai on by the pool.
Exactly.
Yeah, man, it is. He has.
There were
no
some great memes that came out of that. Yeah. That's for sure.
And it's like, people are like, oh, this is the one time he actually wears a mask, and it's like, yeah, I don't know how people.
It's like I don't know how
a
Texas mask.
It was probably just that was the one he wore on the way back. And it's like, yeah, probably just so people wouldn't notice him. But it's like, how could you not notice that terrible haircut of his? That haircut he has is atrocious. It literally looks like he did it by himself with scissors and in a mirror.
You know what else is funny, Jared? Generally speaking, I would say beards tend to make guys better looking. I would say it has the opposite result with Raphael Edward Cruz, I would say. But that's just my opinion.
Oh my god.
Anyways, Jared, my heart does go out to all those Texans, though.
Yeah, for sure.
Let's spread some love that way. And I have another shout out I'd like to give today. So this is quite a great story here, Jared. And my shout out goes out to a gentleman named Devin Hingston, who's 30. And when he was driving around the town of Alexandria, Louisiana, he spotted a young boy playing basketball in his driveway. When he got closer, he realized the boy was using a trash can as the basketball hoop. I always do random acts of kindness. I'll see kids in the corner store and I'll buy them a little snack.
I'll see a homeless.
I guess in an interview, yeah.
Okay.
I'll see a homeless person and buy them a jacket or some food. I just never post about it on social media. You know, they were interviewing him and he was saying this, so maybe they asked him about it. Anyways, because you're right, it does sound a little
congratulatory.
Yeah, I just never post about it on social media.
I don't want to say it because this is good what he does, but it's like,
right here, Jared. Hopefully this last sentence. We'll take it for what it is. I do it from the heart, is what Hingston says. So when Hingston pulled up on the to the house,
I'm not shitting on him.
Right. When Hingston pulled up to the house with a basketball hoop, he was greeted by Patricia Williams and her 8-year-old grandson, Jeremiah. He told Williams that he drove by and saw a little boy throwing his ball into the trash can, and he wanted to give him a gift. Williams said that Jeremiah loves basketball and plays in a league at their local church. His favorite player is LeBron James.
Never heard of him.
Everywhere he goes, he totes his little basketball, Williams said. This man was a complete stranger. I started crying because it was an angel in disguise. Hingston said he got emotional too. Jeremiah was jumping for joy in the background, and it was a very special moment. So anyways, I think this is a great story. Just these little acts of kindness like that can, really do a lot. And I just remember being a kid and playing sports with my friends outside, and we did a lot more like street hockey around here. Well, it's kind of the same sentiment, like if I wouldn't have had gear and someone would have, say people saw us outside playing and I didn't have a good hockey stick, or something like that. Right. Whole point is I just love hearing these stories. I think they're great. So shout out to you, Mr. Hingston.
I can imagine spread a little love. That is very rewarding, to go and see these little sparks of like make people's day or whatever.
Oh, definitely.
I could see that. I could see getting addicted to that. I'm not personally addicted to that. I wish I was, but I could see it. I get it.
Right. All right. I got one last one, Jared. We'll make this one quick. This shout out goes out to NASA for putting the Perseverance rover.
We're on the same page.
Yeah.
I saw that. Sorry. Keep going. Is that all you had? Is that all you were going to say?
Well, I was hoping you were going to add something because you said you saw it.
I mean, I don't really know much about it. Like, isn't there some sort of drone that follows it or something? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. Basically, we're going to get a lot more images, from what I understand, of Mars. Yeah. And technically, we have now, quote unquote, I saw this somewhere, I forget where it was, we've, quote unquote, colonized Mars with robots. Is what I saw somewhere, I forget where it was.
I mean, that's what we do. Not we. That's what people do.
Right. So here, Jared, here's what the Perseverance rover will do now. NASA's Perseverance rover just landed on Mars after leaving Earth more than 6 months ago. Now that the rover is on the red planet, the work begins. Here's what it will do. The rover will explore Jezero crater. This crater is the site of an ancient lake that existed 3.9 billion years ago. The rover will search for microfossils and rocks and soil there. It will relay images from Mars. It will drop a helicopter, so not even a drone, Jared, but a helicopter, I guess. On Mars.
Well, hold on. I'm looking at that quote unquote helicopter
and
right
it's
now.
Probably a drone.
I'm on as they call her Percy. I'm on Percy's. It's NASA Perseverance is the name of the Twitter. I'm on the Twitter account and I see it. And I mean, I guess my question would be, what is the difference between a drone and a helicopter? Isn't a drone couldn't a drone just be an unmanned helicopter? You know, because it's
Right.
obviously unmanned. There's not someone in it. It's pretty small actually, but it does have a pretty big, like dual, like it looks like a pretty, advanced dual, or almost triple rotor system. So,
Right.
I mean, obviously it's advanced. It's flying on Mars. It's not. It's probably better than a drone you can get off of Amazon. But I just wonder. What the difference is. But I see it. Ingenuity, the Mars
It's pretty
helicopter
cool.
I carry, is working as expected. I'm currently charging it, but once I set it down, it'll rely solely on its solar panels. If it survives the brutally cold Martian nights, the team will attempt flight.
There we go. So shout out to NASA because that's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
That is great. Well, Jared, I think I'm looking at my freckle pasta hair watch on my wrist today.
Oh.
And I think you know what time it is. That's
Wow.
right. It
Yeah,
is
you're
time
right.
for some
Good
untranslatables,
timing, Chad.
which are thank you, which are idioms, proverbs, axioms, sayings, phrases that don't always translate on a one-to-one basis, and we are your tried and true untranslatable professionals. And I'll get us started today, Jared, with a Swedish untranslatable. That's how you have to pronounce them if they're Swedish, just in case you weren't sure, Jared. Anyways,
Hurga flurga.
that's right. Ta sig vatten över huvudet, meaning to take water over your head, or getting water over your head.
Oh, is that like to get in over your head in a situation like you're doing too much, as the kids say?
I'll give it to you.
You're doing
you.
too much.
We would. What's the English equivalent to that one?
You're getting in some hot water, maybe, or as the Philadelphia people would say, some hot water.
No, it has to do with a bite.
A bite.
To bite off more than you can
Oh,
chew.
I see. I see. You're biting off more than you can chew.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Taking on too many tasks at once. that
Yeah,
you
or
can
getting in
handle.
over your head. Certainly.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
I gotcha. Okay.
You
biting off
deserve a
more-
ham horn for that one, I'd say.
Yeah. Okay. Good. My untranslatable is Serbian. Actually, both of mine are. Serbian is how similar is Serbian to Czech?
No idea, actually. I'm not sure.
Okay.
It's a good question.
Tresla segora rodio se mish. The mountain shook, but a mouse was born.
What? The mountain shook, but a mouse was born?
Yeah.
It's like something, I don't know, something good to come out of a bad situation? No? I take that as a no. Okay.
I just don't understand how you got that.
I have no idea. When
The
something
mountain
bad
shook-
happens and there's minimal damage or minimal problems.
Or maybe think about that differently. Maybe
Okay.
you're shaking. You're making a lot of. You're shaking a lot, but just a mouse was born.
You're getting all excited or riled up for nothing.
There you go. Much ado over nothing.
There we go. Okay.
Although I prefer yours, getting all riled up for nothing.
Getting all riled up for nothing.
Well, why are you getting
That's
all
right.
riled up?
You're slipping on gator piss.
Well, that's pretty good
That's
timing.
right. That's right. All right. My next one for you is Swedish, and it is. I like this one. This one's an interesting one. Skita I det blå skapet. To shit in the blue locker.
To shit in the blue locker. Mm-hmm. Do you remember the? I don't know. I'm going to say that. That's random. To shit in the blue locker.
You really shit in the blue locker now, Jared.
Like you really stepped in it. You really done messed up, boy. Got the Southern thing going again.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
I'll give it to you.
made a huge. Like you really messed up.
Yep. Yeah. Basically,
Okay.
yeah, you've gone too far, and maybe it's time to simmer down, is what they have. Speaking of Southern.
Okay,
You've gone
so
too
it's a
far,
little
boy.
different.
You need to simmer down.
So slipping on gator piss.
Well, here, this is what they say. Now you've done it. Well, yes, if you shit in the blue locker, you certainly have made a mess of things. Swedes
now
are pretty
you've gone and
casual.
shit in the blue locker.
Exactly. Yeah, Swedes are pretty casual when it
God.
comes to swearing, so don't be offended by the blue, no pun intended, blue language. This simply means, yeah, you've gone too far and it's time to simmer down.
Dude,
Simmer down, boy.
In Formula One, they swear a lot.
Do they really?
Yeah. and not obviously not.
I guess that doesn't surprise me.
Obviously not the presenters, but like they go to they can go to everyone's radio and broadcast people's radio what they're saying to their to the paddock or whatever, and they have to like pre-edit them because there's so many like F-bombs and what being dropped.
That's funny.
And it's like, what the fuck? And this is a lot of, and I'm like, and sometimes even I'm like, come on.
Come on.
What's with the language? So another Serbian one from J Money. Vuk sit I svi. That does not sound Serbian. Vuk sit I sve ovce na brožu. The wolf is full and sheep are missing.
Oh, okay. Is that just to eat a lot of food when you're not supposed to eat it? Like eat forbidden food?
No.
No, okay.
I feel like that's not actually the right because I feel like now that I'm looking, I'm like, does that I think I might have to have gotten this one wrong somehow because oh no, that's what it is. What it is. Okay. So yeah, it means I'll just give it to you because even this one throws me off a little bit, and I don't know how I could explain this out of this. It's a win-win situation.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly.
I don't know how the missing sheep would be the win. Sounds like a lose, but hey,
that's why I'm confused.
Less sheep to shear, Jared. That's for sure. All right. Well, I have one last one for you. This one's also Swedish. Here we go. Nära skuter ingen hare. A close shot will never get you the rabbit.
You have to take big chances.
Nope.
Okay. To me it sounds like you can't, like if you're hunting, you can't just walk up to the animal and shoot at point blank.
That is true, but that's not what this means.
Okay.
Let me try to. I mean, we have a similar one. This says a close shot will never get you the rabbit. We have a saying in English, at least American English, with the word close in it as well.
Oh, close but no cigar.
There we go. There we go. And that, that phrase, to those of you out there listening who don't know what it means, close but no cigar basically means you almost did it, you almost won, but you didn't.
Yeah.
It'd be like if you play a video game and Jared and I were playing FIFA and he was beating me 2-1 like he usually is, and I'm running down the field and I go to cross the ball in the 89th minute and he just goes over the net and Jared would be like, oh,
close but no cigar.
Not a scooter ingahara. Close shall never get you the rabbit.
I'm going to use that.
Yep.
If I can remember that. Not a scooter ingahara.
I will say this, though, Jared. I think the close to winning, this could be an interesting little segue into our main segment today about generations, because I believe it was our generation for sure, and definitely Gen Z, where we have been raised that it doesn't matter if you win, you get a participation trophy.
Oh yeah, I know that I didn't get participation trophies. I don't think that was our generation.
Was it? Is it the younger ones then?
I feel like maybe it was. I feel like maybe it was younger millennials or something. But we're young millennials, aren't we? Let's start with the official age split, which I have in front of me.
Good call. Yes, good call.
So let's start with boomers. Well, I'll just give you all of them that we have. Why not?
Wait, we gotta go before the boomers, dude.
Yeah, that's right. That's true. We might as well. I was gonna skip them because anyway, the silent generation.
Okay. See, there's different names for them.
The greatest generation.
I've heard
that's
that
another one.
And another one I've heard as well, and this is according to Purdue University, Purdue Global, traditionalists. I've never heard that one before.
I don't like
traditionalists.
That. I've never heard that one before. I've heard the silent and the greatest generation.
I kind of like the great generation.
Just because is that because they're considered to be so great because they fought 2 world wars
and the Great Depression. That's where I think
not
it comes
2 world
from.
wars. Now that I look at the time period, but they fought the World War II at least.
Yep, they were alive during World War II.
Yeah,
and I guess they were born slightly after the Great Depression, at least according to this website.
Not what I'm seeing. What I'm seeing is 1928 to 1945.
Oh, you're right.
The Great Depression
mixed up.
Was 1929.
Yep.
And so today they'd be 75 to 92.
Yep.
And then there's the baby boomers, the boomers, as they kind of just get called now, which is really
okay. Boomer.
Boomer is not a great word. It just sounds like an old person word.
Right.
Millennial at least sounds like high tech.
Well, who do you think named the baby boomers? Right.
I don't know.
Was it the traditionalists who named
the traditionalists
or the silent generation?
Why are they so traditional?
I don't know. Maybe for us, I wonder if there's like a certain level of generations back. Maybe
because they're segregated.
Well, no, I think it goes back to the idea that in the United States, we don't have that long of a history. When I say United States, I mean like the United States of America as a country.
Yeah.
Not there have been people living here for very long time.
I got you.
But anyways, I wonder how far back like our generational memory goes, and for us, especially our age, a lot of the quote unquote traditions people talk about maybe do come from like that number of generations back. Does that make sense?
Am
I making sense, or am I just being crazy right now?
I hear you. I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
Baby boomers. That's what from what I see. And mine is according to the Pew Research Center. Okay. So my source is cooler and better than yours. And it's 1946 to 1964. And in 2020, they'd be age 56 to 74.
Yep. Our parents.
That's our parents, yes.
Yep.
Then there's Gen X, which what I call them is the forgotten generation. That's my name for them.
Why is that?
Because first of all, every generation, except for Gen Z, which makes sense because that's now, but every generation has a name except for Gen X. And Gen X really rarely ever gets talked about in like popular culture other than by Gen X people, It's not a highly popularized generation. And so I often call them I often get Gen X and Gen Z mixed up.
Oh yeah, me too.
And I often call them the forgotten generation. Just because I feel like no one talks about them. Everyone talks about boomers. Everyone talks about millennials. Gen Z are the current young kids, so everyone talks about them.
Sure.
But you don't hear much about Gen X. Gen X is 1965 to 1980. So in 2020, they'd be 40 to 55 years old.
Yep. Both of my older sisters are Gen X.
Okay, there you go. If we're naming Gen X people, I have a couple cousins that are Gen X.
There we go.
And then millennials in 1981 to 1996, and in 2020 they'd be aged 24 to 39.
Yep.
Do you know any millennials?
Just a couple. One
and
or two.
Then Gen Z. And then Gen Z is 1996 to present day.
Do you know any Gen Zers? Gen Zoomers? Is that what they call them?
Yeah, some of my Gen X family members have Gen Z kids.
Right. That's what's kind of interesting is you're right, the Gen X. Well, I guess millennials also can have kids that are Gen Z, but they would be probably the older millennials. But it does tend to,
now that I'm looking at this, it does tend to be like boomers are like more millennial parents or parents of millennials, and then Gen X are parents of Gen Z.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah. I never really thought about it that way. I mean, obviously
it's
skips. It would skip like that.
Right.
But yeah, okay. Okay, so those are the guidelines of each generation, just for our framework of the generational wars.
Exactly. So let's talk about really quick, Jared. First, I guess let's go through. I just think this is fascinating, just the current workforce numbers in the U.S. So let me just give these.
Can I make a guess? Can I make a guess?
Yeah, go for it. How many great generations do you think comprise the current U.S. workforce numbers?
So how many we're doing greatest to Gen Z?
Yep.
And it's okay. So great. How many? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, 5. We're doing 5. I would imagine
that they're still working.
Yeah, 2%.
Very good. You're correct. That is correct.
Wow.
The baby boomers. What
baby
percentage?
Boomers. I would imagine 35.
Too high.
Okay. Oh, really? I guess
Too damn
that's-
high.
a lot of those, most of them are in retirement age. 27.
Pretty close. 25%.
25.
Very good.
Are they clean cuts like that? They're all clean
Well,
five cuts.
according to Purdue Global, there.
Okay.
So we'll just go with it.
So I'll stick with
Gen
clean
X?
cuts like that then. Gen X, I imagine, would be. Okay, so we did. Let me just do this math. We did five. So two. I said 2%. Okay,
25%. You're at 27%.
27 between the baby boomers and the Gen X.
No.
Excuse me. Yeah, baby boomers and silent
baby
generation.
boomers.
Yep. Okay, so 27. I'd imagine 35%.
Pretty close. 33 for Gen X.
33. Okay.
So we're at what?
27,
50.
33.
We're at 50%, right?
60%. 27
Yep.
plus 33 is
Yep,
60.
you're right. You're right. 60.
So the millennials would be wow. Now I'm so I imagine millennials would have to be like what, 30%?
Pretty close again. 35%.
Wow. That's crazy. And then so Gen Z, wild. You shouldn't use crazy, by the way. Gen Z is Gen Z is
You're crazy.
They say it's an ableist slur. You should,
Is it really?
Maybe say wild instead. Maybe say
Wild.
Maybe say
Jared,
ridiculous.
you're wild. You're nuts.
So maybe not nuts. I don't think you should say nuts either. I think that's just
Uh-oh.
another form of crazy.
Did I get us canceled again?
No,
we
you have
gotten
to have
canceled twice?
followers to get canceled.
Okay. How
so-
many Gen Zers? Let's see if you can.
This is the
do
last.
quick
That's like
math.
5% or something like
Yep.
that.
Yeah. 5%. Yep.
Yeah. I'm actually surprised at the number of millennials. I would imagine there would be more.
We are
Gen
technically
X.
the majority in the workforce now. At
we are
35%.
Oh, right. Okay, we are.
we have the
we
highest
are.
percentage, at least.
I mean, that
of-
makes sense because
Right.
we should, at this point, the vast majority of millennials should be out of college.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously 24, so there are some that could still be, but generally speaking, most are out of college, and you're now in like there's. If you go up to Gen X, there could be some maybe early retirers because they were, it's 55.
Right.
And then obviously boomers, a lot of those are retired. But I guess, that makes sense. That makes sense.
So, Jared, now I want to talk about.
Okay.
Let's discuss, and I want you to guess again because you were flawless on that one. We'll see if we
Flawless
can.
victory.
We'll see if we can keep. You can keep this high quality here.
And by the way, I'm not cheating. I haven't looked any of this stuff up.
Right. Anyway, so now let's talk about how basically what some of the defining values and beliefs and worldviews of these different generations.
And who is this according to?
This is the Purdue Global, and this is according to a Dr. Bea Osborne. Who is a member in the School of Business and Information Technology.
I know that doctor. I don't like him. Find someone else.
All right. Well, too bad, Jared. Doesn't matter. We're going with this one.
No, I'm kidding.
Also,
I don't know this
significant historical events that have shaped each generation. And this is where I really want your expertise, Jared. How to best motivate and manage workers from each generation. So we'll see here. All right, we're going to start with the silent generation or the great generation, however you want to call it. So once again, these were people born 1925 to 1945. What do you think, Jared, would be some qualities or some traits that you would list for these people?
Resilience.
So this would be like our grandparents, right?
Yeah, resilience.
Okay.
I imagine there's a lot of build yourself up by your bootstrap mentality.
That's right. That's right.
I would say, because I feel like that generation had to experience a lot of rebuilding from
what?
From the Great Depression, which was in 1929, and then also not that the U.S. was destroyed. Well, actually, I guess there was some destruction from World War II in the U.S., like Pearl Harbor and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And even though there wasn't maybe a lot of physical destruction, still there's obviously a lot of mental wear on a large portion of society because of a war that you kind of have to rebuild from. And so I think that generation was, and I think they're called the silent generation because they also, another probably pillar is like that sort of, I guess it goes along with resilience, like not complaining,
Okay. Yeah. That's right. Suck it up. Just do it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, here, let me read you what, according to Purdue Global.
Okay. Go ahead.
I would agree with what you said, but this is what they have here. Dependable, straightforward, which I would agree with. I mean, my grandparents were definitely, they did not beat around the bush.
My grandparents don't either.
Yep. Straightforward, tactful, and loyal. I would agree with all those. Like, I think loyalty is another big one. I mean, I think
I kind of did say tactful. I kind of covered tactful.
Yeah,
I think that kind of does have to that does come from like having to learn how to survive. Oh, also there was that was the time of the what do you call it when there was no booze? Wasn't that the time of prohibition? When was prohibition?
Was that in the 30s?
Oh, that was the teens.
Was that the teens or was it? I'm not sure. Or wasn't that the 30s?
Oh, maybe it was. If it
Prohibition?
it was. Oh yeah, it was 1920 to 1933. So yeah, that was the time of prohibition as well.
They were babies, but they were alive.
Yeah. Oh, that's true. That's true.
But yeah. So the things that have shaped the Great Generation or the Silent Generation, obviously the Great Depression, World War II, and then in terms of technology, Jared, radio and movies. That was like the big thing back then, which also heavily influenced music. Like I
would also say, well, no, maybe that was before that. I was gonna say manufacturing, but that actually might be before that because like Ford was like the 1918,
right?
And then also
they were still making a lot of improvements on manufacturing.
Oh,
so I think you're right.
For sure.
You're right.
For
Sure. The other thing too is it's interesting to think about how technology influences each generation, and like with this generation having like radio, they had a lot of they had records, vinyl records, and what's interesting about vinyl records, Jared, is that also influenced how long some of the songs were. Because you could only put a certain amount of minutes of music on on one side of a record,
right?
So it's really that's actually, Jared, where the
that was actually the case for a long time though. Even past records, that was still a factor.
But that's why some music back in the day, or the radio standard, was 2 to 3 minutes. Because they wanted to fit a certain number.
Oh, interesting. I didn't. So
it was shaped by the technology. Yeah.
Another thing about the silent generation or the greatest generation, they do not smile in pictures.
True. That's true. Now that I think about it, I'm thinking back.
You cannot find a picture of my grandparents smiling in a picture.
Right. That's true. That's true. So, Jared, how do you think the Great Generation or the Silent Generation, what's their communication style?
To the
how
point,
do they like
blunt.
to communicate? No, but I mean, like, what if you were to get a hold of your grandparents the way that
I see
the way that
telephone,
they would actually
talk on the phone.
Okay, maybe okay.
Letters.
Yes.
Certainly
handwritten notes. Definitely.
But did they have phones at that time?
I would say a landline phone, yeah.
Okay.
A cell phone, maybe not. Good.
Wait,
and then,
cell phone? I thought we were talking about the greatest generation.
I'm saying how do they prefer to communicate? Which would be through
today.
Letters. Yeah, just in general, I think. But yeah.
Oh, I thought you meant like when they were like kids or something.
Right. Well, I think that does influence how they do communicate today, big time. All right, so I think we've covered the Great Generation. Now let's move on to the baby boomers. So what are some character traits, quality traits, Jared, that the baby boomers have?
Independence.
Okay. Oh yeah, I'd agree with that.
I would say family. Now, obviously, but I would say no. I want to say I feel like the baby boomer generation is sort of like the American dream generation. That sort of 2.5
elaborate
kids
a little bit? Okay.
In a subdivision.
Right.
And you work a factory job.
You got a nice little Honda minivan.
You have a picket fence painted with lead-based paint. You have a nice lawn.
Your kids are playing on the local soccer team.
A golden retriever and a Buick or whatever.
Right.
I feel like that is the baby boomer generation, that American dream generation, and that sort of. And I think they are. I think there is a lot of independence in that generation as well. Like that's what I'll give you.
Okay. Well, I'll give you the traits, at least according to Purdue Global. Optimistic. I would agree with that one. Like, I feel like there are a lot of very optimistic baby boomers. Competitive. I would also agree with that one.
Yeah.
Workaholic, which I think there
Yes.
definitely are a lot of baby boomers that are for sure workaholics.
Yeah.
And kind of like what you were saying though, Jared, about the family, I would say, and they mention also here team oriented. I would agree with that. I do think a lot of boomers, I think when I think of team oriented, I would definitely consider the boomers more team oriented than like my grandparents' generation, for example. Like my great uncles and my great grandparents, they were more like maybe one or two people. Like they would go up to the cabin and like hunt and do work. They wouldn't like bring a whole crew up. You know, where I feel like a boomer like might be like, okay, let me get like 5 or 6 buddies. We'll all go up there and get it done. Whereas, you know what I mean? So it's a difference in generational beliefs, I think.
Yeah, for sure. And also, but this was also aren't the boomers are also like the free love time.
Yeah,
And like my
background.
And is that? I was wondering why you chose that.
It's a Woodstock poster, but of course, because it's vertical, it was cut off.
Why would you choose a boomer background?
Because our parents are boomers. I don't know. I didn't know what to pick for a millennial background, to be honest with you. This just came to mind. It was easy to come to mind.
I would for some reason I think of Nickelodeon.
That's great.
like
the green slime,
the Splash Nickelodeon logo.
Right.
You know, yeah, that's
true.
what I would have thought of.
That's true.
That orange one. I guess they're all orange, but so I would say there was also baby boomers were also like sort of like it was like the protest generation as well.
Sure. Yeah.
That was sort of not the original, but that was another time in our history, almost kind of similar to today, where there were a lot of big pushes for racial equality.
Gender equality.
Which is part which was kind of connected to the hippie movement a little bit.
Yeah.
I think it's also people forget that hippies were racist too, but
sure.
But those kind of fall together in that sort of we all love each other, man.
Right.
Were the boomers were they also the sort of going along with all of this, the fight against Vietnam generation too?
Yep. That's one of the big, so the things that shaped this generation, Jared, I'm glad you mentioned that.
The Cold
Definitely
War.
Vietnam War. Cold War would be later.
Oh, yeah, that's
War
like the
would be
80s.
later. Civil rights movement also really shaped the boomer generation. Watergate as well, which is ironic now because you think of Watergate and think of all the political stuff that's gone on in the last year. And I feel like Watergate now just seems like horseplay considering all the stuff that's happened.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And he got impeached too, which is crazy to think about, because now it's like, there's no chance that enough of one side would impeach like their own person. It's like, that would never happen.
Right. Exactly. All right, let's talk about Gen X, Jared.
Yeah.
You say the forgotten generation.
So
Gen X, born 1965 to 1980. What traits would you give them other than forgotten and not talked about?
I would say rebellion.
Interesting.
Rebellion against parents, I'd say. I feel like Gen X is when the respect for elders really started to go out the window. I feel like that was
I would disagree.
I feel like that was the turning point.
I would say it was the
the
tail end of
boomers?
the boomers.
Interesting.
Which then would bleed into Gen X a little bit.
Sure.
But
okay.
I think it's actually the boomers because if
that's when they became more individualistic, you think?
Well, that, and it's more about freedom of expression, and I think the hippies were honestly more rebellious than the Gen Xers, if you really think about it.
That's a very fair point. That's a very fair point.
Especially when it comes to just music, drug use,
well, that's
all
the
that,
thing.
all that
when
stuff.
I think of Gen X, I really do think of 80s music. I think of all that synth music and all the...
But then again, you have punk in the 80s, which is very rebellious.
That's true. That was also that's true. That was that's true. I think of baggy clothes.
Yep.
This is also
MC Hammer pants. That'd be the 80s, right? Parachute pants. I think that's what they call them. Mm-hmm. Okay. Any other traits though, Jared? So rebellious.
I would say this was also sort of I don't want to say. I listen to this podcast, and they're Gen Xers, and they all this one guy always. Let me know what you think of this, because I don't really know. This one guy claims that Gen Xers they started irony, like that's like they were the generation that really embraced irony. And like
maybe in like humor and
like sarcasm, that's where like the sarcastic humor came from.
It could be.
And I don't know, but I always hear him say that, and I'm like, what are you talking about?
I mean, that's a pretty bold statement. It could be, or what could happen is that, or what happened is maybe Gen X, that just that type of humor appeals the most to that generation, so they popularized it. I would say that would be something that I would be comfortable saying. But I don't know if we can give them credit for coining it or creating it, but maybe popularizing it.
What do you associate with Gen X? Because I feel like I struggle to think of associations. I mean, we said the music,
right? With Gen X, I kind of, I don't really know, and maybe you are right about them being the quote-unquote forgotten generation. But I think with Gen X, I do think of Gen X. That would be.
I think they were also maybe sort of. No, that's sort of boomers too. I was gonna say rebelling against like corporate, but that's certainly, but they certainly did that with that's what hippies were doing too.
I will say this: when I think of Gen X, I do think of kind of informal. Like I don't think Gen X as a generation is known for like dressing like dressing super sharp or like wearing more formal clothes. Obviously, I'm sure there's plenty of Gen Xers out there who dress great.
You know what I also think about when I think of Gen X?
What?
The war on drugs. That was when when the war on drugs really started. That's when the
AIDS epidemic,
the AIDS epidemic, the crack epidemic,
Cold War, fall of the Berlin Wall,
the criminalization of crack versus cocaine, and that's when all that really first started. And also that was when there was like wasn't there like some spying? Like there was some there was during that time. I can't think of exactly what it was, but I feel like there was some FBI or CIA shadiness happening. I mean, there's always FBI, CIA shadiness happening. What am I talking about?
Right.
So that's all I have for the forgotten generation.
Those are definitely some
what
big moments
Purdue
that shaped them. They say Generation X is flexible, informal, skeptical, independent. That's what I meant. Yeah, I would agree with informal. I would also agree with flexible. I think a lot of
informal actually kind of makes sense, because I feel like Gen X might be that generation might have been the first turn also in like not having to wear suits to the office and stuff. Like, cause if I think of like the 60s and beforehand, that was a time when people were wearing suits all the time and hats.
Even my parents told me, to wear like slacks, a button down, and a tie when I was just going to hand out job applications.
Yeah, I mean, my parents are very. The term in the black community is like respectability politics, and like sort of the like how people perceive, especially black people, but how people perceive you based off of like your hair or how you look. And sort of conforming to what society says is going to keep you out of trouble, which is, problematic, because in theory, none of that really matters. But my parents were certainly big into like how you present yourself at an office. Especially as a black person, but just in general, how you present yourself as at an office and like what you wear is very important. But I feel like Gen X was like the first turn, and maybe like casual Fridays or like companies just like ditching the policy of dressing up. I feel like Gen X was probably the big change on that.
Right. In case you're curious, Jared, in 6 years, Gen X will outnumber the baby boomers. In case you were curious.
Okay.
Pretty
I'll
crazy.
write that down.
Exactly. But yeah, I would agree with you with all that. So let's talk about Gen X worldview. And I'm not sure if I necessarily agree with this, but
pessimistic.
I think there is
I say pessimistic.
Okay.
Am I right?
Well, interesting you say that. One of the things Purdue Global says here is quick to move on if their employer fails to meet their needs. I would say that I do think Gen X and our generation is, well, exactly. I would say Gen X and our generation, we both are more willing to, I think, jump and change jobs, because nowadays just the job market is so much different than I think it was for the boomers.
I think the boomer generation is the final might be the final generation where you hear like people be like, I worked at this company for 38 years, or like I started at this company when I was 18 or 22 when I just graduated, and I worked at this company until I retired. Yeah. Right. And you know, I work at a large company, like sort of an old school style, corporation. Right. And you see a lot of that where people are like, yeah, I've been here for 38 years, right? And sometimes I'm like, how old are you? Like, you look great. Like, I'll say this to myself. Obviously, I'm not saying this to coworkers, but I'm like,
maybe you should say that to your coworkers.
I'm like, how old are you?
Right.
I was like, I thought you were like in your 50s, but that means you would have started here when you were what, 12? Like,
right. Exactly.
So yes, but I think that like the younger boomers or like older Gen X is like the last bastion of staying at a company like that for your whole life, and then getting the retirement party where you get a Rolex or whatever and your pension.
Right. Speaking of Gen X, Jared, fun fact, Gen X is probably the last generation that actually knows how to open up and fold a newspaper. Because if you think about it, I couldn't tell you the last time I've actually opened up a newspaper.
Dude, I don't think,
lots of articles.
Or like a map. I don't think I've ever properly closed. Once a map has been opened, it never gets closed the same way.
True.
Which, by the way, Gen Z has no idea what we're talking about.
Right, a map. Just use the app. What's this M on this word? It's app. Exactly. Yeah. Now let's talk about millennials, Jared. What do you think are the traits of millennials? Let's try to be as unbiased as possible here.
I would say social justice is a big trait of millennials. I would say now, like, it's hard. This is hard because I keep just thinking about like the stereotypes of like millennials can't buy houses, or millennials don't know how to properly invest money. Like
we can thank a lot of the boomers for that.
Stereotypes of millennials is that we have no idea how to properly use our money, but then,
which is true to some extent.
But then millennials say, well, no, it's the boomers that set up the the workaholic boomers that turned our economy into this overworking system that under pays but over expects on work. We get into the generational wars a little bit.
Right.
But so it's hard for me to just properly think about what would define a millennial. Well, I would say individualism, probably.
Okay. Interesting. Okay.
I would say, no. I would say I take that back. The opposite of individualism. I feel like reliance. Okay. We definitely have like a reliance on parents.
Yeah, sure. Sure.
We have we're the first. I'd also say millennials are the first generation to really embrace mental health. I would say before, I would say Gen X and back, it was more like mental health was more stigmatized as a thing to talk about, or talking about feelings. I would say that was a big movement with millennials. Self-care is a big millennial idea. The idea of treating oneself.
Mental health day.
He had me days, taking me days. I would say millennials. It doesn't feel like millennials are obsessed with money. Like, they're not money driven.
Interesting. Okay.
That's how I feel.
Okay. All right.
And I am money driven, but I don't feel like that represents millennials.
Okay. Yeah. I think you are right to I would actually agree with that. So one trait that I think a lot of millennials have, not all but a lot, is open-mindedness. I do think a lot of millennials, because we were raised by boomers who were into the whole hippie free love movement, a lot of that stuff.
But then the boomers, once the millennials were born, the boomers had already taken off their free love outfit and put on, or their tie-dye and put on their suit and tie. Right. And I don't know about you, but I get like glimpses of what my parents were like as children. Like, I don't know if I have a full picture of even, like, I only know them as put on your suit and go to work adults,
Right. Well, they're your parents. I mean, that makes sense. Okay, so according to Purdue Global, they do say civic and open-minded. I would say millennials, we tend to, and I've even heard this from teachers, that our generation, we have tended to be a lot kinder to our peers, believe it or not, than Gen X and the boomers, which I could kind of see
I'd
that,
say
I guess.
Gen X and boomers certainly call us soft, you know?
Well, I do think a lot of us are soft. I would agree with that. But here's what's interesting is Purdue Global, they do say that a trait of millennials is millennials are competitive. I would agree with that, but I think some of that is just because of the nature of the way the world is now.
I'd be surprised to I don't feel like that's a millennial specific thing. Now, obviously Purdue, I'm sure they know what they're talking about. But me personally, I don't picture that as a millennial thing. I picture that as a boomer. I feel like that's a thing that, if it is a millennial thing, that's certainly a thing we got from the boomers.
I would agree with you, but I think that's why we are so competitive. And just think about sports, Jared. I mean, sports have never been at the level. Obviously, it's some of it's because of the times and some of it's the technology and everything else. But I mean, just think about it. Like, think about how evolved and developed sports have become. And I think a lot of that does have to do with competitiveness.
I don't watch sports other than Formula One, but like I watched the Super Bowl. And the camera technology blew me away, bro. Like the way they have this new, I don't even know how to explain it, but like it's this new camera technology. Well, first of all, it looks like they're there.
Is it just on the ball?
But
you get the ball
no.
view?
Like when you see like the people look like ultra realistic. But it's also like this thing. It's this weird effect where it's like it's constantly focused. Like it's did you watch the Super Bowl?
Bits and pieces of it.
Do you know what I'm talking about at all? Like where
Not
it's like
really,
it's
no.
Oh my god. All right. Never mind. It's like it's like hyper. It's like it's just hyper realistic, but it's also this effect where it feels like the camera is constantly focusing and refocusing.
Gotcha.
Like you know how you can see where a camera like it does that in and out sort of, and blurs somewhere and then gets focused on something. It almost feels like it's constantly doing that on different things and like on different people and things. But like when it does focus on something, it's this hyper realistic thing. I don't know. The technology is insane, is what I'm saying.
Right. Yeah.
What I'll also say about millennials, by the way, is that we are the first. We are the generation that has we are the first generation to sort of really experience technology and no technology.
Right.
And so we had to grow up like in the midst of the hyper speed acceleration of technology. Right. Because I'd say from the late 80s to, still going, like technology has grown exponentially throughout the past 20 years, essentially since 2000.
And it's evolved way faster than we as humans obviously evolved too.
Exactly. And I think we are we're lucky in the sense that we're the generation that is we're not going to have we're less likely to have that sort of I don't understand this technology moment. I'm scared. I feel like I'm going to bite my tongue because I'm sure it's going to happen because technology is still advancing. But I feel like it's the thing about when you see your boomer parents or silent generation grandparents try to use technology, I can't imagine.
If I had $1.
I cannot imagine that's going to be
us
millennials. I mean, you're terrible with the phone now as is. It's so I don't know. Maybe I don't know. But
yeah, but I try to use my phone as little as possible, and I don't really want to know much more about it.
Okay. That's the reason why Chad doesn't know how to save a picture.
That's right, exactly.
We'll say that's what it is. Okay, but it doesn't matter. Listen, this is a generational war, Chad. Don't turn this into a Chad and Jared war.
That's
We're
right.
on the same
that's
team
true.
here.
That's true. What events has shaped the millennial generation, Jared?
9/11.
Yep, obviously.
I would say
I still remember that day.
Yeah, we were fourth grade.
I think I was third grade. Third or fourth.
It was. I certainly because I remember we had like a mid-morning like 15-minute recess thing that they canceled. They're like, no, we can't go outside. I do remember that.
We got sent home. We had a half day and got sent home, and I'm like, why are we going home early?
We might have gotten sent home too. I don't fully remember. We might have too, though. Actually, I drove past my elementary school today.
Oh, nice.
I would also say events? we are the generation of the mass shootings, school shooters,
yes,
mass shootings. I'd say our generation has really started becoming a normal occurrence.
Unfortunately, yes. And what was the predecessor of mass shootings, Jared?
What do you mean the predecessor? Or what started it, you mean?
Yeah.
Okay. I would say, I imagine you mean Columbine in Colorado.
Sir. Yep, Columbine, exactly.
I don't think predecessor is the right word, because predecessor is like what came before school shootings.
Right.
But you mean what
the
started
first one.
I can't think of the first.
Exactly.
There's a word for that, but I can't think of what it is.
Right.
It was certainly Columbine was the first time. That was the first one where it was like
national news.
Holy shnikes. But then it was. But then by the time we got to
then there was Sandy Hook.
By the time we got to was that the elementary school? No, that was a different.
Yeah.
By the time it got in Connecticut, when that one happened, and no one did anything.
Elementary school.
I also remember the Virginia Tech one was big when we were kids.
Yep.
But the fact that we can just list off. There's also the one. Remember the guy that was going around in the van, shooting people from his car.
Mm-mm.
Oh, okay. I remember that when we were kids too.
Okay.
The fact that we can just rattle off mass shootings is certainly something that started during our generation, I would say.
Yep.
And then I would say, I'd say that's. I mean, obviously technology. The hyper exponential growth of technology.
Right. Yep.
Social media. I would say we're also we were the first generation.
Even bigger than that, Jared, would be the internet. Just the internet in general. That's a huge one.
Yeah. Well, I said
here's
that
an interesting,
already,
right? Well, that one's so big, it's easy to forget. It's like right in front of your
face.
So
ubiquitous now.
Yes. This is a crazy percentage here, Jared. 75% of the global workforce will be made up of millennials by 2025.
Okay.
I don't know if that's a good or... Yes.
Jeez.
Oh, I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing.
We didn't talk about like pop culture and stuff. We were also the first generation of the no longer using CDs or no longer having a physical form of music. We were the first generation of MP3.
Yep. And LimeWire, FrostWire.
We were the first generation torrents,
iPods,
Napster. Napster's kind of old though, but that was kind of a little bit. No, that was our time. But we were the first generation that really had to. We were that really screwed up a computer over downloading some stupid shit.
I mean, the digital generation,
and it was really the wild. It was the wild west of downloading. You could download anything.
Yep.
And there was and we didn't really think about the repercussions.
Right. Very true. Very true.
I destroyed probably at least 2 computers because of LimeWire alone.
Definitely 1 for sure. Probably 2. Yeah. Oh, good times. But hey, you had to get your 50 cent Indie Club on your,
for some reason
brand
you had to get
new
the
iPod.
Entire discography of Drake or something, which I did have, by the way.
Right.
I wasn't even that big of a Drake fan.
For me, it was probably Metallica, but yeah.
But it was just because...
Yeah.
I remember actually, because I remember Guardo. That's not his real name, but it's probably best that I don't.
Yep.
He was the torrent master in college. So the reason I brought up Drake specifically is because I think there was one album or even a couple songs I wanted, and he's like, "I'll just get you the whole discography."
Right. Then you can really decide which songs you like and you don't like.
And it would have every remix, every
remix. That's awesome.
And by the way, we were also the generation of the dances. I mean, obviously there were dances before.
That's true.
But the Superman Dad Ho, the Dougie,
stanky leg.
The stanky leg,
stanky leg.
I mean, I guess every generation had their dances though, so I'm not going to say that was
Shuffle
us.
Be Gen X.
That seems like a more Gen X-y to me. I imagine my aunt and cousins
Cotton Eye
doing
Joe.
It. Oh God, that is our generation. First of all, no one is playing Cotton Eye Joe at any of my family gatherings. That is not usually played at black family get-togethers.
I need to
The
stop
Cuban
going to
shuffle
white
is,
people
though.
get-togethers.
But certainly not Cotton Eye Joe.
Right. Let's see. What are some other big dances? Yeah. Anyways.
There's the Macarena.
Oh, yep. That's a big one. That was like when we were kids.
Yeah,
really.
that might have been Gen X because that was when we were kids. But it lasted all through our childhood. Like it was still popular when we were in elementary and middle school.
Right, for sure. All right, let's move on to Gen Z here, Jared. So Gen Z born 2001 to 2020.
One more thing that really defined the millennials is the cartoons, by the way. That was another big one. And obviously I'm biased. But I would say that the Disney...
A lot of great cartoons.
That was really the growth of Disney, I would say. As like
I'd argue the Disney generation might be actually Gen X and millennials. I would say it might span back that far.
But Disney Channel... Like, obviously Disney was huge... the movies started in like the 90s,
right?
Well, that's millennial. But the movies, like the Disney movies, really started in like the 90s, didn't they?
I think
80s?
You have some other ones in the 80s, but that would be like an older.
That's still millennial.
Yeah, you're right.
And
you're right.
Certainly Disney Channel, that's a millennial thing. That is.
You're right. That's true.
So in a Nickelodeon Cartoon Network, I would say like the Saturday morning cartoon. That was that I would say but I'm also biased just because I know that's my generation, so I know it better. Gen Z. Well, we can move on to Gen Z because I have some generational war stuff I want to talk about.
Cool. What traits, just real quick, would you go with Gen Z?
Fully technologically immersed.
Yep. Okay.
I would say they're also. I would say they're the woke generation. So
okay.
they're
progressive.
They're very progressive, very socially conscious, very
I'd agree.
Like sensitive to people's feelings. I feel like that's sort of new for
right.
That's sadly a relatively new thing here in America.
Right.
Like you can't I would say the millennials were certainly the last generation where you could get away with saying, obviously it's still probably going to change with time, but I feel like
don't be getting us canceled, Jared.
The last generation where you could really get away with saying some words that just you can't.
Right.
You could not say today. Okay. Whether it be R's, F's, C's. There are all sorts of words that you just millennials said, but that was sort of the last time that those words were accepted.
Right.
I would say social change in general is big for our generation. Climate.
Gen Z, you mean?
Gen Z, I'd say, is hyper concerned about climate for good reasons.
I think everybody should be more concerned about that.
In Texas right now. It's not a blizzard, but there's a lot of snow in Texas right now, and they can't handle it. Yeah, that's what I have for you.
Okay.
And also, that's it. And
according to Purdue Global, what they have here is global, entrepreneurial, progressive, also less focused. I would say it's not that they're less focused. I would just say that they've gotten... Well, they're not kids, Jared. I mean, if you were born in 2000, you're 20 years old. I mean, technically, you're an adult. You're an adult. But anyways, I think that the key with Gen X, why people label them as less focused, is just because they grew up in a time when they could just get things a lot faster, so they're not as patient. Like we've talked about for you and I.
Instant gratification generation.
Well, we've talked about...
They're the first generation where you can get anything you want delivered to your house within a day.
Exactly.
If you live in the western most western places,
right? Well, and we've talked about how terrible it is when we have to wait 4 days or a week to get something delivered. But when we were younger, that was normal to wait 4 days or longer.
For sure,
4 or 5 business days.
Yeah.
And we also didn't have all these great apps where you could, I remember when I was a kid, if I didn't know my bank statement, I'd have to, go to the bank, it wasn't like I could just log on actually, no, maybe was internet banking a thing when I first opened? I don't remember. But anyways, it was just different. We just didn't have all these great apps.
We also just did, even if it was a thing, you couldn't just, download an app and get into it with your face.
Exactly.
Or in my case, I have an older phone, my thumbprint.
Right, exactly.
Also, I would say that this pandemic will also really shape Gen Z. It's happening right now, so you can't really say the effect it has on Gen Z. But I will say it'll almost definitely have a big effect on future generations. This pandemic,
100%. I completely agree.
Millennials, Gen X, Boomers, up until this point, have experienced no pandemic. I mean, there was there was a small, what was it?
Well, the AIDS epidemic for Gen X.
That's true. But that was also sort of
Ebola for us, which wasn't a huge thing in the U.S., but
the thing about the AIDS epidemic, though, is that was kind of the fault of the government. It did not have, like, that was more, I don't want to say it was hysteria, because it wasn't hysteria, but, like, that was sort of I feel like that was more the result of bad policy and bad.
I mean, couldn't you argue that the same for right now, though?
And the demonization of the gay community, like they really turned them into, like they blamed them and sort of made it worse than it had to be because of the homophobia and hatred of the gay community.
Right. Yeah.
Because and because of that, because of the hatred and, sort of a fear of the gay community, that led to I think that played a big role in the terrible sex education that was experienced at that time, and not really wanting to be realistic with sex education.
Right. So, Jared, you know what a big key thing with these generational wars is how we view generations culturally. So there's just one quick thing I want to bring up, and then I think it will be a good segue to talk about the generation wars, is this idea, and I don't know if you've heard about this before, so maybe it'll be something new for you. And I heard about this a couple weeks ago, so it's pretty new for me. But the idea of horizontal versus vertical identity and cultural identity. So basically what that means here is vertical. It means you grow up more in a traditional culture, like I think of China, for example, where your grandparents live in your house, right? And you have a much more vertical type of lineage where you really know your family, your identity, most likely where you're from, all that stuff, right? Whereas then you have horizontal culture or generational, culture, which is more like what we have in the U.S. Where
that's interesting.
You move out at 18 or 19. I know a little bit about my family, but after maybe my great grandparents, there's not really a ton we know.
And I imagine you don't know much about where your heritage or where you're from. Like, you don't really associate with your, I don't even know what sort of national heritage you have, but you don't associate with it.
I'm a smorgasbord of French, Irish, English, German.
Okay. I thought you were just going to leave it at smorgasbord. I didn't actually think you were going to name them. That's why I interrupted you. I'm sorry. But I would say that's also huge that's huge in America because, I'm a black person and our heritage and history was stripped from us when during slavery. And so we have, most black people. Which is
not that many generations back, which I think is worth mentioning.
Yeah. Most black people have really no concept of where they came from because, white people made a pointed effort for them not to know.
Right. Change names.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Change names or separated families. Also, a lot of rape and kids coming from that too.
And families being separated as well.
Yeah, I just said that. I feel like you're not listening to me.
I am listening. I'm just trying to recap. I just
said that. Recap. Anyway, but as far as the horizontal culture goes, I mean, the black community essentially it plays a primary role in defining American culture on the horizontal level.
Right.
And I think there is something to having to make up for, you have to make up for one with the other. It's because we can't really associate with our history. We have a much better relation with our present culture.
Sure. But I also think some of it also comes down to lifestyle, culture, quality of life. What I mean by that is, in the U.S., if you are over 18 or you've graduated college, let's say that's maybe a safer way to approach it. Or I would say especially 21 up, a lot of people, want to or are almost expected to move out of their parents' house. Whereas in a lot of other cultures, you might live with your parents until you're married. And some people, get married in their 30s.
It's more like a more of a transfer of power. And like I feel like I know in Chinese culture, and I imagine in other Asian cultures, it's more like you live with your parents, but then once you the child start working and making money, there's a slow transfer to where now you're the main breadwinner for the home and taking care of the parents, but then in return, you have sort of built-in child care, and it's just like it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
But Americans and a lot of other Western cultures are like, let me just drop my parents somewhere so I can live my life.
Right.
I'll hire child care.
Yeah, it's very, very different views. And I also think our generation and also Gen X, the idea of the nuclear family isn't as important as I think it was with the boomers, and especially our grandparents' generation. It's very, very different now.
Sure.
It's just a different cultural, getting divorced or having a child out of wedlock nowadays doesn't have the same type of stigma as it used to,
Let me ask you this, Chad. Let's see if how you feel about this.
Okay.
Signs. Signs that do you know what there are signs that the Gen Z have of dead giveaways that you're old. These are the dead giveaway old signs, and they're not anything and it's a variety of things.
Okay.
Can you give me some
Tight
guesses?
pants.
How the hell did you guess that?
Tight pants.
How the hell did you guess that?
Because I'm in the know, Jared. Tight pants. Side parts.
Okay.
Tight pants. Side parts. Well, you can start a new rap song.
Is this a song?
Let's see here. What else? No. Well,
What do you mean
we're
side
making
parts?
it up. Like your hair, like a side part in
you
your
looked
hair.
this up, okay? Because there's no way.
I didn't look this up.
How would you know this though?
Because I'm in the know. I'm in social media, Jared.
There's no way you did not look this up, and it's fine if you looked it up. I don't blame.
I'm being
Obviously,
1,000,000,000% honest with you. I haven't looked anything up. This is
How do
simply
you know
things
that?
I've heard.
oh
Dude,
my
I'm
gosh.
on social
this
media.
This is new to me.
I'm on social media. I see memes. I read random articles and stuff on social media.
The side part, when I hear it, it made sense to me, but I would never guess it. There's one more that blew my fucking mind.
And we talked about this, actually, I will say, we talked about this at work in a meeting we had a couple weeks back.
I love it. I didn't realize. This is news to me.
The whole conversation started with us talking about Gen X, because I do work with a lot of Gen Xers. Their generation is kind of the wear jeans at work generation, where like you said, casual Fridays, and then we were joking around about like in the 70s it was like bell bottom jeans, right? And then our generation, like the famous song, Get Low, says apple bottom jeans.
Our generation though was certainly
jeans.
Also the skinny jean generation.
Yep, skinny jeans.
Sure.
Yep. I mean, I wore skinny jeans.
But I went through both. As elementary school and early middle school, my shit was baggy.
Yeah, I had the Jinko jeans that were super baggy.
I had a big, just everything was big. But
Did you have the wallet chain, Jared?
No, never the wallet chain.
Cool kids know? Okay.
Never the wallet chain. But you know what actually...
Studded belt?
No, but I am very familiar with it. I never had one personally, but I'm very familiar with it. That was super
back
popular.
in the day.
Did you really?
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Oh yeah. Black Iron Maiden t-shirt, long hair, skinny jeans, black Vans, and a studded belt.
The chain too?
I think so.
You had chain and studded belt?
I think so.
Jesus.
Dude, I mean, hey, good old being a millennial back in the day.
Although I do remember, though, what jump-started my switch, and real fast, actually, was the move to Germany.
Oh,
Germany
yeah.
at that point, or the Europeans,
they did not rock the baggy stuff.
They were not doing baggy at that time.
Nope.
And so that was a switch. That was when I first started embracing the skinny jeans.
And that's when Jared got style, people.
And,
moving to Europe, it'll do that to you. Europe will do that to you.
Actually, yeah.
Yep.
And that's when I first started wearing the skinny jeans. That's when I first actually started really paying attention to brands and noticing brands. Like that's, my Carhartt jacket. That's when...
Speaking of brands, tune into our next episode about brands, by the way.
Oh yeah, that is what our next episode is about.
Yeah, speaking of brands.
At first I was like, what are you talking about right now?
Chad's just crazy. Right. But the clothing is definitely a big one. I wonder, are flannels a millennial thing? I just love flannels.
No,
Is that a
I would
millennial
say
thing?
that's a Gen X thing. I think that's more
Really?
like the grunge.
The grunge era. Okay, that's fair.
What's his name? Kurt Cobain era.
Yep. Well, Nirvana.
Yeah.
Well, even Pearl Jam.
Pearl Jam for sure. Yep. Or like, what is that other one? Oasis.
Alice in Chains.
But I imagine
no,
that, I think
Oasis
that's more
isn't grunge.
No, they're not grunge, but I imagine them wearing flannels is what I'm saying.
Okay, fair enough.
But I'd
what
say
are
that's
some
more
other
of a-
things that show you're old, Jared?
What
else?
Another one. This one blew my mind, and I'm not a big emoji user, but I do
How you use them, probably.
but not even just how you use them. There's a very specific emoji that the youngs don't use.
The eggplant emoji.
Oh no,
Or no, they're always using that one.
No,
Sorry,
they use
they're
that one
always
too
using
much.
that one.
Right. Calm down on the eggplant emoji.
The normal smiley emoji, probably, because it's too mainstream and normal.
No, I don't think
Okay.
that's really popular with anyone. It's
Okay.
I'll give you
Speak for yourself, Jared.
It's the laughing with the crying tears emoji.
Oh yeah, I've read that they say
Apparently,
that one's
the
overdone or
youngs
overused.
use the one where it has like the two
The
straight
tears rolling
streaks
down. Okay.
instead of the one where it's like the two droplets of tears that fly off,
Actually, it's funny. In WeChat, I use the one with the tears strolling down.
like the two
Because
strings.
that's more. Yeah, because that one's more.
That's more what
often used. That's what they use.
Do they have a different emoji game in China? Like, I
Yeah.
feel like the Chinese emojis
We
in general.
talked about it when we did the WeChat episode.
Oh, did we? They're more animated, I imagine.
Well, they just look different, and they have
Yeah.
different options. Like
Sure.
one of my favorite ones, it's like and a lot of these, it's funny when you click on the emoji with WeChat. The way WeChat works is it will show the emoji, but then it will, if you copy it, it will actually say like in brackets, and it will say what it is. So like for example, it will like be in brackets say laugh or smile. And one of my favorites is it's in brackets, and in English it says determined, and it's this emoji that has this like kind of like like determined look, and it has like a karate like headband on, and it's red. It's kind of cool.
Let me ask
that's
you
one
this,
of my
Chad.
favorite emojis.
I have an emoji question for you.
Okay.
We could do a whole episode on emojis. I'm
would
not
be
even
fun.
an emoji user, to be honest with you. Is this, you know, the emoji where it's the hands? Is this a praying hand
has
emoji?
it has two meanings or three meanings, I think.
Or three? Oh, I only
Yes.
know two. Praying hand emoji.
Praying hands
or
is
high
one.
five.
Those are two: praying hands, high five. I also think some people use it as the praying hands is like a thank you.
Yes. Yeah. Sure.
So
sure.
I guess
sure.
kind of two in one. I guess,
Oh,
in
like
that
like
case,
like
but-
praying as like
Yeah,
either
like,
like
thank
thanks
you.
for that,
Like,
or like
thank you so
I'm really
much, yeah.
hoping like I
Right.
gotcha.
Right.
You know, it's funny. Boomers have no idea what we're talking about right now. So
That's
those are the
true.
signs that you're old according to Gen Z.
Right.
I think there are. I feel like
Every generation has that thing. By the way,
did we
that's
have
super
those
cyclical.
signs for like what were the signs for us that and I don't have a
I
list
got
of
some.
this.
I'll give you some. I can rattle some off the top
I
of the
have one,
dome
but
right
please
now
go
for
ahead.
you, Jared.
Please,
How do I make this Word file a PDF? Or how do I
hilarious.
download a PDF?
Oh yeah,
or one of
that
those?
was the millennials are certainly the first generation that has to teach older people how to use technology.
How do I turn on my computer? How do I turn on my phone?
Another one, oh shoot, I forgot it. I just I had it, but I forgot it. No, I can't think of it. Oh, another one I could think of is the New Balance shoe. The
Or
Monarch, the Nike Monarch.
Yep, the dad shoe, which get green because of the mowing the lawn. Usually, they eventually turn green after a couple years.
Is
but
the
yeah.
millennial the first generation to coin the dad joke? Is that a millennial thing?
No, I think
making
that
fun of
dad joke goes
dads?
back. Well, I would say that's become more prevalent in the media from the boomers on, or maybe Gen X on.
Yeah,
is that
I think-
goofy sitcom?
You're right. I think that is a
type.
boomer thing.
Yeah,
Where
yeah.
it was always
Yeah.
the idiot dad, and the wife is like, it was almost like, why is this woman in this relation? Like,
Because I think back in the day, men were actually portrayed a lot more positively in the media.
But well, there was also back in the day. There were also, I mean, ads were crazy back in the day because well, you can't.
That's
should have said crazy because it would be the thing, especially if like there would be like the car ads where it's like this is a car that even a woman could drive, or like
Right.
get the Firestone tires. It'll even keep
the
even a woman
irony-
on the road.
The irony is though, Jared, is that narrative's kind of switched now because I remember.
I think now it's really in commercials. It's certainly the dad is the idiot.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting too because I forget where it was, but I saw it was either a billboard or a commercial. I think it was for a Dodge truck. And it was like, this truck can do more than your husband can do, or like something like that. And they were trying to market the truck to more women. And also say that it's like super useful and and it's like
it's not just used for going to the work site,
right, exactly. So it's interesting how that
which I hate, by the
shift,
way. I hate that marketing. And I don't have a problem with that they market pickup trucks to women. I just hate that they market pickup trucks as a daily normal vehicle for people to use. Or it's just I mean I get it, but I don't like it. I don't like it.
Right.
Millennials don't attack Gen Z, do we? We don't attack Gen Z.
Not really. I think we have a pretty good. I think where the
Gen Z attacks millennials. We talked about that last episode.
You know what? I think everybody likes to shit on millennials. I think we're an easy target.
We are an easy target. Harry Potter.
We're an easy target.
Treat yourself. Wines.
Yep. Dude, it's the spritzers, bro. It's all the.
Oh yeah.
Or is that more of a Gen Z thing? Because they are now 2021.
I think we're more like the Four Locos, the beer bongs.
Oh God.
I feel like that. I mean, I'm sure kids are still
Brass
doing that
Monkey.
stuff. But
Miss
what's
those
Brass
things.
Monkey?
You don't remember? It's a 40 with OJ. Good old Brass Monkey. That was like a cheap weekend, my man. That's like $5.
Oh, first of all, I've had a 40 with OJ in college, probably with you before.
Probably.
That is a easy, simple, delicious beverage.
Yep.
I did not realize it was called a Brass Monkey.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
We used to
I wonder if that's more of a millennial thing.
Dude, you know what we called them?
What?
We had a name for those.
What do we call them?
Come on. You don't remember the name we had for them? I can't believe it just came to me
Something Cobra?
No, we called them a frat rattler.
That's right. Oh my God, that's right. Because Rodler is like a
beer,
usually beer with lemonade.
Yeah,
but you can get them with like grapefruit, so it's close
different
enough.
Sort of like citrus beverages.
Right,
yeah.
Frat Radler. That's
and
right.
The 40 with the orange juice was a frat Radler. I can't believe that just came into my head.
Good times.
I totally forgot about that.
Good times. But you're right. The millennial generation, I would say we do come down to the treat yourself. I have a theory about this, though, Jared. I think this also stems back to our parents' generation, most likely the boomers. So what happened was...
We're also the debt generation, by the way.
Yes, big time. Big time. That's... Yeah.
We just talk about that. That just came to my mind.
With the great generation or the silent generation, whatever you want to call them, I think because they went through so much hardship throughout their lifetime, they wanted to provide their children with the opposite of what they had to go through, which then in turn led the baby boomers to be raised in an environment where, they really wanted to have a good, comfortable life.
It's just a whole bunch of overcorrections.
Right. And then it led to our generation where we really are the, if I had $1 every time I heard someone say, you can do whatever you want, follow your dreams, and all that stuff. I think that's stuff that boomers a lot of times said quite a bit to millennials, to our generation.
I'd say that's true. Millennials were also like the anti-bullying generation as well.
Yep.
And I would say before that, sort of the idea of verbally abusing someone was generally accepted as okay.
Right.
But I think we were, and that's another thing. It's so funny that we, as millennials, millennials get made fun of for being the participation trophy generation. I mean, this is hacky. Everyone said it before, but it's like, we're not giving ourselves the participation.
Right. Yeah, who do you think?
Trophies.
I love it when boomers criticize millennials.
It's the parents who are boomers.
Exactly.
Insisting that everyone deserves to be recognized. It's like, how are you going to put that on the kids that were just given the thing? And
can I mention, Jared, like a couple things about boomers that they've taught us that I think were good advice for their generation, but not great advice for our generation?
I'd love to hear it, yes.
Okay. All right, yeah, and some people would say these are quote-unquote lies that you've been told by boomers. I'm not going to go that far. I would just say, like I said, these are things that I think were applicable for their generation that just times have changed, and it's not quite the same. The first lie, or the first thing, is going to college. You need to go to college. I think it's very important. I think depending on the type of career you want, yes, look into it. But I think
like, especially with this pandemic, we're starting to see a turn on that.
Right. Right.
We're and one with the pandemic, and two, probably more importantly, with the insane amounts of debt that people are stuck in for the rest of their life.
Well, see, that's the thing, is that for my parents and our parents' generation, for the boomers, I remember my dad telling me he could work a summer. And that summer full-time work, I don't even know if it was full-time, but that was enough to pay for his tuition, his books, his apartment rent, and a car payment. You know, nowadays, if you try to do that, forget
over the summer in college was literally barely enough for me to have as like, I don't even want to call it walking around money. Yeah, exactly. It was barely enough spending money in just like the random times I would, buy food or the random times I would buy alcohol or something. Right. It was barely enough to do that. Right. Every year by the final months, I'd be like, it would be scraping.
Right. The second thing I would say, and this is kind of related, is not only do you have to go to college, but you can study whatever you want, which I think to some degree is okay. But I think on the other hand, and this also does lead to the whole debt issue, is that, I mean, think about it. If you cannot afford college, which most people nowadays cannot because it's incredibly expensive, and then you study something where your max salary after you graduate is 20 to 30 grand a year, I'm sorry, but with today's living standards and the cost of rent and cost of living, you'll never be able to pay back that debt.
Yeah, boomers lived when college meant good job for the rest of your life.
And it meant job stability and security. And we just don't have that nowadays with the current job market. So that's, I think, another big one. Another big one, too, is...
lies, we were told.
I knew a lot of people that I went to high school with that were fairly wealthy, and their parents just didn't... They didn't work at all. And I think, I don't care how wealthy you are, I think it's important to have your kids do a little bit of work just so they understand
because they're gonna
what it's like to earn their own money. Exactly. So that's, I think, another
just so you understand what
issue.
It's like to... Yeah, I mean, for sure. Like, that makes perfect sense. I mean, I think we're the coddled generation, you know? Right. We're the generation of spoiled, entitled people.
Well, I do think we as a generation, I think our generation, we do put too much emphasis on government and just getting support from others and not supporting ourselves. And some of it is just because of we just can't afford to support ourselves, a lot of us, if we're being honest.
But I'd say I think we're the first generation that's really addressing the fact that the way our system is set up is not
I agree,
sustainable.
Yep, I agree.
And so I agree with you, but I think it's for a valid reason because before us, it was just, I mean, even Gen X, it's just sort of this like get a job and that's it kind of situation. Right. And I think we're the first generation that's really starting to talk about like the holes in our healthcare or our education system, I feel like. Right.
The other interesting thing too is the job market has changed a lot, and obviously even
minimum wage hasn't really changed much.
Right. Well, the other thing is too is that as technology has changed, I mean, the fact that you have people out here who are YouTubers, the fact that that's a job or a quote unquote career nowadays,
and that's also that's got to be probably one of the top aspirational jobs for a Gen Zer is
it is. Well, it's funny. I saw this graph a couple weeks ago, and it was really interesting to show just the different world priorities. So the number one job in the West, in the UK and the US, was a YouTuber.
Of course,
young kids wanted to be,
because it's just someone having fun and posting videos of them having fun and making millions of dollars doing it. But they don't see all the work
that goes into it. But okay, so but guess what? Guess what the aspiration was in like Russia and China?
As for Gen Z,
yeah,
doctor, lawyer.
I know in China it was actually an astronaut. They really wanted to become an astronaut. Yeah.
Has China gone to the moon before or gone to out of space?
I'm pretty sure they've gone to space before. Yes,
but probably not the moon. But they've like okay.
I'm not sure. My knowledge of Chinese Astronautics
I'd
is not
imagine
the best.
probably not the moon, but I get they probably have gone into space.
Right. But yeah, so it's just interesting though how how based on the culture and everything it changes a lot.
Astronaut seems like an old school that sounds like a boomer aspirational job here in the
or even our generation. I would say our
Really?
generation, yeah.
I feel like what were
you don't think so
popular?
when
What were
we were in like
aspirational?
kindergarten?
Yeah, I guess so. That was like a cool job.
I feel like a firefighter, an astronaut, obviously like a famous
Firefighter
musician or
was-
athlete.
Yeah, I wanted to. I always aspired to be a lawyer.
Podcaster.
I thought a lawyer was a job that I thought I could be good at. But then by the time I got to high school and started realizing what lawyers actually do, I'm like, I don't want to do that. Yeah. Then I thought, I also thought like a Top Gear presenter, or like like a job like that's any sort of
That'd be
job,
cool.
or like Fifth Gear. I think that was another version of not version of Top Gear, but another car show in England. But sort of like the car journalist presenter seemed like a real cool job where you could they just give you cool cars to drive, and you just get to drive every sort of assortment of cars.
You know what I
super
wanted
fast.
to be when I was a kid, Jared?
What's that?
A veterinarian.
Really?
And then when I realized
That seems like that's actually a popular job. I feel like that's a popular choice for kids.
And then when I realized I'd have to operate and potentially put animals down, I realized, okay, I can't.
Yeah,
do it.
you're not just saving animals and making kids' days every day.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, for me, I think it was a veterinarian. I loved baseball as a kid, so famous baseball player, or we were '90s kids, so be in a boy band. That was super popular when we were kids. That was like the rise of
You wanted to
Backstreet
be in
Boys
a
and
boy
NSYNC.
band or
I
like a
did.
rock band?
Boy band. When I was really
Interesting.
little.
Okay.
Like this was before I started playing guitar.
Yeah.
Before I got into rock music.
Yeah.
This was like kindergarten, first, second grade, around that time.
I feel like there from like millennials and back, there were a lot more people that thought they could sing. I feel like that doesn't happen.
Are you
anymore.
trying to give me hints here, Jared? Are you trying to tell me?
I feel like I thought I
Stop
could sing
singing?
too, but I
You can sing. You can carry a tune.
But I feel like that doesn't happen anymore. I feel like younger people are not as like sure that they can sing these
Well,
days.
the difference is young people will
They just
upload a
lip-sync.
video on TikTok of them lip syncing or singing, and then the internet might, tear them a new one. So it's a little
we are
different.
becoming, it's so funny. We are becoming the old generation.
We
I was
are.
talking to my friend the other day. Actually, Chris, bass player.
Nice.
B.
Shout out.
Chris, the bass player, and I don't remember what we were talking about, but he's like, well, we're still young, and I was like, are we though?
We're almost 30.
Yeah,
we are 30.
I was
We're
like,
not.
I was like, can we be 30 and call ourselves young? I was like, sure, obviously, to a lot of people, we're still considered young.
Right.
But like you can't call yourself young at 30. I feel like
No, you're
it's
you're
like
an
you're
adult.
a full on
At 30,
adult.
You're an adult. Yeah.
You have full on responsibility for yourself at that point. It's like you can't be calling yourself young anymore. It's like in the
I
grand
agree.
scheme of things, maybe you still are, but you can't put that on yourself anymore.
Right. I would agree. 100%. You're just not.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. Should we talk about our song today?
Sure.
Real
sure.
quick.
Sure.
So this is a good one. It is, and we've featured this artist before, Michael Kiwanuka, and this is quite the jam. The title of the song is "You Ain't the Problem," which I think, depending on the generation, Jared, I think this song kind of spans musical styles of quite a few generations here. I mean, there's some funkiness, there's some soulfulness to it. It's also kind of poppy in a way that it's very repetitive and catchy. But yeah, what are your thoughts on this tune today, Jared?
Oh, I liked it. I thought it was good. I didn't find it too overly poppy, personally. Actually, I thought it was good. It was just I haven't listened to it since before this episode. I listened to it like 3 times in a row though. I'll say that. And I don't always do that. Like if you give me some of those Russian dance hall, or not dance hall, some of
Dance
those
club, disco?
is completely different. Yeah, so those Russian disco music, I might not do that. But this
That's
one,
fair.
I was like, oh, I can run this back for sure. It had like an old school vibe to it.
Yep.
I remember now. The song's starting to come back to me. It actually gave me some Red Hot Chili Pepper vibes.
Interesting.
A little
okay.
bit of the melody, sort of the way that like the I don't know, was it the
beat?
cymbal? Yeah, the way the beat sounds a little bit gives me some Red Hot Chili Pepper vibes.
Okay.
I'm not gonna lie.
Interesting. Okay.
Are you listening to the song now?
I am, yeah.
Do you
Yeah,
hear what
you're
I'm
probably
talking
seeing
about?
Me bob in my head. Yeah. No, I see what you mean. I get more of like, believe it or not, more of a almost a Motowny vibe.
I understand
from
that.
it.
I can hear that
From
too.
the beat.
But I'm not saying. But I agree with you in what you said before, in that it is sort of a mishmash of genres.
And I like the way it builds.
I can hear some Motown in there too, for
Right.
sure.
I like the way it builds because there's
Like some-
lots of parts, but none of them I don't think are like super flashy. Like it all fits together. Like there's a horn part, the
Yeah.
guitar part's pretty simple. It starts off. It sounds like there's almost like some congas or some other like hand drums in there to kind of start like that kind of groovy beat that it lays down. And it does have more of a kind of an upbeat tempo. And then obviously that kind of la 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 that part, that's really really good. Where it just kind of establishes kind of this upbeat positive, and that's where I kind of got the kind of hippie, more boomerish vibe from it a little bit. But then I don't know, the song just takes you on quite an interesting journey, and I really like it.
I do too. I thought that was a great choice, and clearly Michael Kiwanaka is a podcast favorite because I think this might be the third song of his that we've featured, if not
Exactly.
fourth, or 3.5 if he might have been a feature on another one.
I think he was
on a Tom
yeah.
Misch song. But yeah, I thought it was a great choice. I enjoyed it. To the point where I actually thought I need to listen. Like I've heard obviously the songs that we've played on this pod, and I've enjoyed them. I need to give it a proper listen.
Do a deep
dive.
for sure.
I put an album or two into my Apple Music.
Nice. There you go. Yeah, it's a solid song. I just like the words as well and the vocal melody. It's a solid song. So check it out. You Ain't the Problem by Michael Kiwanuka on our Song on the Pod playlist.
I said his name wrong. I said Kiwanaka. Sorry.
No worries. I could be pronouncing it wrong too. But anyways, check it out on our YouTube channel, Untranslatable Podcast. It's definitely
you're
a good
right.
one.
Kiwanuka.
But yeah, this has been fun though, Jared, talking about the different generations. Anything else we missed or you want to mention with the generation and the generational wars?
I think I hit everything I wanted to say. I will say, I think as generations progress, especially here in Western culture, we are really losing respect for our elders. I think that's
a bad thing.
I agree with you. Because I think that the ageism is becoming more of a problem.
Yeah,
and I think
it divides us more than
it
anything,
divides
I
us,
think.
and I think we as the young people, and I say mostly like Gen Z and millennials. I'd say Gen X straddles they're probably about 50-50 on respect for their elders or not. But I would say that we lose a lot of the gems that you're supposed to get from the people that have lived a full life,
right?
And that those nuggets need to be passed down. But I feel like we don't. We're really losing respect for those nuggets, and we just
I agree.
Sort of
Well,
look
I
at
think
the older generations as a nuisance or burden.
Well, and the view, I think, of family has changed, especially in the West. Relationships have changed a lot, which has influenced the change of culture, music, movies, media, how we interact with one another.
In the United States, at least, is that horizontal culture, which is not the family, not like the blood part, but more like the socially created culture, has fully taken over. Whether that be
for sure.
art, whether that be politics, whether that be who you follow on social media,
clothes you wear,
like
all that stuff.
Your identity, as you want to define it, has fully taken over, and you're no longer and sort of we in our Western culture don't live in a culture defined by our parents or our grandparents and how they lived.
Which to some extent, I mean, it's good and it's bad. Like I wish there were certain
there's benefits
aspects
to both, obviously.
Right.
Like
well, definitely.
some people like it's like, well, your parents, there are a lot of cultures that are very class based, where it's like, well, this is what your parents did for their job because of their grandparents, and that means you can never have a job higher than this or whatever.
Right.
And so there are certainly, I would say, cultures that take it to the extreme on the other side of sort of we're honoring that your family and your place in your family. Obviously the best would be like probably a mix of both, but that's not how the world works.
Right. Well, that's why I really encourage people to go to other cultures, travel to different places.
Sure.
Because it's really interesting to see the way things are if you visit a culture where it is a more vertical type of culture, where it's really more like, and that's why I think fashion, like for example, fashion in China is very different than fashion here. And you do see some more quote unquote old school type of styles over there that are popular because I think some of it has to do with respecting your elders. Also, I mean, even if we look at, like, sometimes I look back at some pictures of like family in the 50s and 60s and like I know my grandfather and my great-grandfather, they both were pretty high up. My great-grandfather owned a car dealership, and the dude dressed really sharp. Whereas nowadays, like if you dress like that, you'd be overdressed.
That's another thing. I would say boomers and Gen X are there was a pride in being rich or having a lot of money, but I'd say in class. I'd say that was I would imagine that was probably less the case for the greater generation or silent generation, that sort of flashing your wealth, because one, it was during the Depression, and then also it was like it's during a wartime as well. So there's just more sort of idea of unity, and it's like, how are you out here like making it seem like everything's great when there's a world war going on right now? But then I'd also say now for millennials and younger, and Gen Z the younger Gen Z is the younger one, right? And in Gen Z, the idea of flashing wealth is very gauche and very frowned upon,
bruh.
I would say millennials, there might be a little bit more of a mix where flexing is still a little bit okay, but I'd say millennials was probably the last generation. Yeah, so maybe somewhere halfway. I'd say.
You sure about that?
I feel like the idea of flexing is not
a Gen Z thing. Are you sure?
I don't think so.
Really?
Well, I mean,
I just think about Gen Z on YouTube, like all those Gen Z YouTubers flexing.
YouTubers,
social media flexing.
Do they flex? Okay,
probably. I don't know.
I feel like the idea of flexing, or because you know why I say that. I
just feel old talking about.
But
this.
You know why I say, especially when I say, the idea of flexing. You know why I say this also, because like we as millennials hate on people like Jeff Bezos, hate on people like Bill Gates and sort of or Elon Musk. Like these ultra billionaires, the idea of being a billionaire, it really seems like it's kind of disgusting in culture right now because we're so focused on the idea of like big problems in the U.S. are healthcare, homelessness, and just this gigantic wealth gap between there's like always people that talk about like Bezos doesn't really donate money, and that like how much good he could do without any sort of change to his lifestyle. So the idea of having millions, billions of dollars and just sitting on it is kind of gross, I would say. And so that's where I think
some of that also comes down to people not understanding. I think a lot of people think when they see, that he's so wealthy, it's not all liquidated. It's not like it's all.
Sure. I mean, it's not just, that's not what, he doesn't have billions of dollars in his checking account that he could just pull out in cash.
Right.
Sure. But I think it's fair. It's clear that he could be donating more because his ex-wife has donated significantly more than he has.
Right.
So I agree with you. Just because it says he has however many billions doesn't mean he can just go pull it out in cash or make a cash payment for $12 billion right now.
Right.
But it's clear, it's undeniable. It seems like that he could be donating more because he gave half of his money to someone that is donating a lot more than him.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. Well, I think our generation too, and Gen Z as well, because we know how to use the internet, we've been using it for a very long time, I think it's uncovered. It hasn't uncovered everything, but it's uncovered a lot of, just wealth inequality, just how a lot of people live their lives, because you can go online and post it now.
I also think wealth is a little bit more frowned upon because of the more like the younger generations being more hyper aware of the effects on the climate.
Sure.
And not even just that like rich people are ruining. Well, no, actually, yeah, I'm going to stick with that. Rich people are destroying the climate, and just like the boomers' lack of concern about the climate, yet concern with profits and money, I'd say is sort of souring people to the idea of. I'd say flexing is different than maybe what I think is frowned upon is corporatism. And the idea of just corporate of how
with our generation, I'd say capitalism too.
Yes,
is really frowned upon.
Yeah, I guess that's essentially what corporatism is.
True.
Is just using the way that corporations can manipulate the government and society. Just for profits. When without really regard for the well-being of people, whether it be oil companies or pharmaceutical companies or food companies. It's just all profit, regardless of the people.
Yeah,
well-being. So
yeah, it's interesting. That's for sure. I will say though, with generation wars, I really believe that, like I've mentioned before this episode, it's very cyclical. What I mean is, especially if you live in a culture like we do, where it's a more horizontally type of culture, horizontal generation, you really see people kind of saying the same things, right? So, for example, our parents, especially my parents, being white parents, my dad's a little bit more open to it, but my mom is definitely not a fan of hip-hop music, for example.
I thought you were about to say interracial dating.
We're not going to go there. But
they're not a fan of that either, apparently.
But definitely, so music, though, is a big thing, where you see kind of the same thing, right? For our parents, rock and roll
my parents
was
don't really like hip-hop either.
Okay, well, maybe it is a generational thing. See, so once again, though, for our parents' generation,
they don't like the overusage of the N-word and stuff like that.
Sure. It's just interesting though how that works, right? And I guarantee you, Jared, within the next 5 to 10 years, we are going to start saying the exact same thing. You can already kind of start to see it, like when that song "Friday" came out by Rebecca Black or whatever. When I first heard that, I was like, "What? Like kids really listen to this?" And after I said that, I was like, "Oh my god, I'm getting old."
That's such a weird one because I feel like that was made for our age, but I agree with you with the music thing for sure. I mean, I felt that way watching the Super Bowl halftime show. I'm like, who is this for? And I was like, this guy is super famous. I was like, okay, I don't fully get it. I'm gonna be honest with you. And it's like I don't even want to say this is bad. I'm just gonna say I don't get it, and it's not for me. And that honestly, watching the halftime show made me feel old because I was like, I don't understand why this guy is so popular. All these songs.
Oh, The Weeknd?
Yeah, all these songs sound exactly the same.
But then I hear The Weeknd. But
then I see you like The Weeknd. Mm-hmm. I don't really know anything about him. I know that I can't feel my face when I'm with you song. Mm-hmm. I will say I was actually surprised that I knew most of those songs. I don't really think much about the songs, Right. Like I don't ever it's just songs that you hear when you go to a grocery store or something. I don't know. Or some club that you get dragged to by your asshole friends,
Like me.
I don't know who that would be in my life. I'm just saying.
Right.
But yeah, all right. That's all I have. We've rambled enough.
All right. Well, turn on that music, Jared, and let me send us off then. It has been a fun episode, though, about the generational wars. Let us know what your thoughts are on the generational wars. We obviously know millennials are the best, but you can let us know what your thoughts are at untranslatablepodcast@gmail.com. Yes. You can slide into our DMs on Twitter, untranslatable1, the number 1. Check us out on Instagram, Untranslatable Podcast. And don't forget, check out our song of the pod today by Michael. I always forget his last name. Thank you, Jared. check that out on our YouTube channel, Untranslatable Podcast. And lastly, please, 5-star reviews on iTunes and Stitcher. Let us know how we can make this podcast better for you. So as we say here at the Untranslatable Podcast, dziękujemy, muchas gracias, shisha, and do svidania. Get off my lawn!
Oh, yeah. Maybe
What are you kids doing on my lawn?
That's the classic boomer line.
Right.
Oh, that's another thing that we should have mentioned about boomers. Boomers are obsessed with lawns, property values, grilling. Yeah, it's a culture. Yeah,
It is. What would be our
homeowners
equivalent of that?
associations? Boomers love a homeowners association.
Millennials love air fryers. Is that a safe thing to say? Is that a safe thing to say?
Dude,
Uber Eats and air fryers. One thing that I did read that I found interesting was apparently our generation and Gen Z as well, we're very against drunk driving, which is a good thing, I guess.
Oh, interesting. I'd believe that. I feel like before Gen X and Boomers, drunk driving was normal. Like
it helps also with Uber. You know, before Uber, you had to call a taxi. And you know where I live in bumfuck nowhere, good luck finding a taxi. You're going to have to call one all the way from Ann Arbor just to take you from the shitty hole-in-the-wall bar to your house 5 miles away. You know?
Exactly. Yeah, that's true. Like, the idea of driving drunk really just seemed pretty normal back in the day.
Right. Whereas
and,
now
like, there's so many stories of, like, the cop would tell me, oh, all right, just go home. You know, get some rest. You know?
Right. Just sip on some water while you're going home.
All right, drive a little slower, okay? Keep it straight.
Right. Yeah. Oh, man. Crazy stuff. This was a fun one, though, Jared. This was a fun
I'm
one.
glad we did it.